All full up. Can't carry any more. To find the hidden city, go south along the shore until you find the pink fish. Then chase the heart of the serpent to the Silver Crown Mountain where the twins confer. This is the star Alphard, the solitary one, the brightest star in the western sky and the heart of the Hydra constellation. 2,000 years ago, it's set in the west. That's where I hope to find the hidden city. In the Maya long count calendar, all dates have 5 numbers. This numeral was damaged to look like a 13, but what if it's really an 8? That's a 2,000-year difference, and the constellations would be in a completely different position, so the star path would lead west to somewhere in Peru. This dagger is the key of Shakshel. I found an inscription near it. The key to Ishel's heart unlocks the cleansing. This is the path to the hidden city. It seems to describe a series of trials, entering through a jaguar mouth. A spider and an eagle that rises toward a temple, leading to a serpent with a silver eye. This is a serpent-shaped statuette I found in an ancient Maya tomb in the lost city of Paititi. It's yet another clue in my search for the silver box of Ishel. There appears to be some irregular edges, like a key. But a key to what? A clue to where Lopez took the silver box. The heart of the serpent is in the cup, near the many stone faces. The silver box of Ishel, unlocked by the key of Shakshal and used to summon the god Kukulkan. Funny how something so slight could be fundamental in creating or averting the end of the world. November 24th, 1603. I accompanied Andreas Lopez, a group of 12 soldiers and 2 Molossers through the jungle. The directions the Jesuits provided to Trinity were excellent, so we discovered the hidden city with little difficulty. The natives of the city welcomed us warily, but we plied them with gifts, and they reluctantly allowed us to enter the city, unaware of our true intentions. Lopez has begun to search for the artifact while we distract the city's leaders. 29th of November, 1603. After dinner, Lopez left the city. I followed, worried he might not return. I found him standing by the riverbank, lips moving as though in prayer. Not wishing to disturb him, I waited. His communion with God must have lasted through the night, and I regret to admit I fell asleep, for the next thing I knew, Lopez stood smiling serenely over me, the morning sun behind him, creating a halo. He helped me to my feet and clasped me in a strong embrace. "True Elos, I know where to find the artifact," he whispered in my ear. "26th of November, 1603. At dinner, Lopez asked me if I believed these heathens were worthy of the artifact's alleged power. I had to admit that the Paititians seemed noble and industrious. However, their taut skin, stretched tight over sinewy muscles, and lack of shame made them more similar to beasts. "And what of our leaders in the society?" he then asked. "Should they be able to wave their perfumed and ring fingers in any direction and expect us to obey, to return and sit at their side when they beckon? Do they not treat us as inferior beings, as beasts as well?" I had no answer. What he'd said was heresy and treason, but in some way, I wondered if it wasn't the truth. This rosary has 6 decades instead of the usual 5. A very ornate example of the brigantine version. There appears to be an engraving. This leather-bound volume of prayers seems to be from the late 16th century. It's in remarkable condition. Someone decided this depiction of Christ's death needed a little sprucing up. The ink is badly faded. It's difficult to make anything out. Savage, outrageous, betrayal. And this isn't parchment paper. It's thicker. Animal hide or human, maybe. "30th of November, 1603. With a local man as a guide, Lopez, the soldiers, and I set out from the city before first light. Just as well, as a terrible flu began to spread through the population. Lopez is convinced his artifact does not lie in the city itself, but somewhere just outside. I asked if it was not somewhat hypocritical to enlist the help of those loathsome people. Do not loathe them, he said, any more than you would these molosses. They are all creations of the Lord our God, as are we. I told him I was stunned to hear him speak in this fashion, but he took my hands and we prayed. The energy of his faith ran from him to me, until I felt the chains of doubt fall from my heart. Trinity is an ancient and secretive organization ruled by an Illuminati-like High Council that has existed since the time before Christ. They are determined to find and exploit all of the ancient artifacts of the world. I've been hunting them since I found out they killed my father. Jonah and I have tracked down so many Trinity cells since then, but all of the other ruins and tombs we found were destroyed, except the one in Cozumel. I need to find out what they're after, what their endgame is, and stop them. Dr. Pedro Dominguez is an archaeologist and expert in pre-colonial Maya history. My father mentioned him in his notes more than once. That's the lead Jonah and I were following up on when we came to Cozumel. His excavation in Cozumel was one of the last places my father visited before he was killed. If there is a connection, I want to find out what it is. I thought that Dr. Dominguez was only the leader of the local Trinity cell. I never imagined that he would turn out to be the leader of the High Council of Trinity. Ixchel and Shakshel are two faces of the same goddess. Ixchel is the young woman and represents life and healing. She's associated with the full moon. Shakshel is the old woman and represents death. She is associated with the new moon. Together as the twins, symbols of duality in the cycle of life and death. According to legend, the key and Shakshel and the silver box of Ixchel were created in the heavens for one purpose: to destroy and restore the sun. The ritual can only be performed during an eclipse. Once the ritual is completed, the chosen avatar will hold the power of the sun within them. Having become the god of creation, Kukulkan, they must sacrifice and release that power to restore the sun. But the silver box tempts people with visions of an idealized world they could create with that power, a fantasy of their own mind, an entirely new reality, only at the cost of destroying this one. Trinity's influence is even wider than I thought. They have controlled Paititi for centuries, where they are known as the Cult of Kukulkan. Their highest-ranking members in Paititi are called the Serpent Guards. They are picked at a young age from among the best warriors in Paititi, and fight alongside the Jaguar warriors and the Eagle Archers. Unuratu is the rightful queen of Paititi. After a famine that nearly wiped out the city, her family was ousted from power by the cult of Kukulkan. Her husband, Sayiri, died hunting for food on the outskirts of Paititi. Amaru, or Dr. Dominguez, Sayiri's brother, felt responsible and took control of the city, using resources from Trinity to feed the Paititians until the famine passed. Even though Amaru saved the city, the cult, in his absence, now rules with arrogance and fear. Unuratu and her rebels are fighting to free the city from the cult of Kukulkan and restore its ancient bloodline. Unuratu was raised to believe it was her family's legacy, to complete the ritual of the silver box of Ixchel and restore the sun for another age. Dr. Dominguez is originally from Paititi. Trinity has had a presence in Paititi since the 1600s. The former leader of the High Council, Gualtiero de Luca Dominguez, an Italian cardinal, saw great potential in a little boy and trained him, like a son, to be his replacement. He moved up in the ranks until he became the leader of the High Council. He has lived most of his life outside of Paititi, returning often but not staying long. His real name is Amaru, but as the high priest of the cult in Paititi, many people call him by his honorary title, Kukulkan. He has brought the key of Shakshal home from Cozumel and has assured his people he will use it to protect them. Amaru wants the silver box of Ishel to protect Paititi from the encroaching dangers of the outside world, but already he is being tempted by the possibility of remaking the world in his own image. Jonah is a survivor and a good friend. I met him several years ago on my first expedition on board the Endurance. He made me laugh the first time I spoke to him, calling me Little Bird. We've been through so much since then, and after I lost touch with my best friend Sam, Jonah was always there for me. He came with me to Katesh and helped me find the divine source, the artifact my father was looking for when he was killed. After I destroyed the divine source to keep it from Trinity's hands, Jonah helped me hunt them down, cell by cell. When I finished deciphering my father's notes, Jonah thought that Cozumel was the best place to start. At first, I didn't believe him, but he was right. The site in Cozumel was the only one we found that wasn't destroyed. Now I know why. Trinity knows there's a piece of the puzzle missing, and I need to find out what it is before they do. Commander Rourke is a highly trained, multi-decorated veteran of the U.S. Special Forces. His extensive experience with highly classified and sensitive operations, executed with deadly efficiency, brought him to the attention of the High Council. They recruited him based on his record alone. He is the leader of Trinity's military forces and personally leads the Deacon teams, which have access to custom APCs called Paladins and special ops helicopters called Cardinals. He is Trinity's second in command, answering only to the High Council. While Dominguez is the heart of Trinity, Rourke is the fist. Rourke and Dominguez don't always see eye to eye, but each has a grudging respect for the other. The Ashiel are the descendants of the creators of the Key of Shakshal and the Silver Box of Ishel. In the centuries since Lopez stole the box 400 years ago, they lost their purpose. Now they protect the site where the ritual of the silver box will take place. Even though their minds have faded, their purpose remains intact. They will fight and repel anyone entering the holy city of the serpent. They are led by a priestess known as the Crimson Fire. She represents Shakshal, and along with Ishel, she is charged with completing the ritual of the silver box and guiding Ishel in her sacrifice of the sun's power. Once it is completed, the Crimson Fire and all the Yashiel will return to the heavens, where the key and the box were forged. Spanish Jesuit missionary Andres Lopez, a member of Trinity, was dispatched to find and retrieve the silver box of Ishel rumored to be in Paititi. Instead of bringing the box back to the Trinity High Council, he confessed the theft to his old friend, the Emperor of Paititi, Sinchichika, Unuratu's ancestor. Together they entered into a plot to hide the box from Trinity. Lopez went west of Paititi and founded the mission of San Juan, leaving a path of clues stretching back to Cozumel for Sinchichika's descendants to follow when the time came. But while building the mission and the deadly crypts below, the box's power corrupted Lopez's mind. He came to believe that no one was worthy of the power of the sun. He died alone in the dark, consumed by the power of the box. Soon after, disease severely wiped out the population of Paititi, taking Sinchichika and knowledge of the path of the clues that led to the silver box with it. A rubbing taken from the walls of the cenote. It is simply a large X and the word run. The detailed engravings on this helmet and its unusually good condition could mean this helmet was worn more as an accessory rather than protection in combat. 1st of December, 1603. A strange noise woke me in the middle of the night. I found Lopez still staring at the fire, though now it was nothing but coals. I asked him if he'd heard the noise as well, but all he did was grunt. I wrapped a blanket about his shoulders and built up the fire again. Then I sat and listened. Far-off shrieks and hisses, likely distorted by the twists of the caverns. But underneath all those sounds, I heard a faint thrum. I've heard something like that before, but rarely, and only when in the deepest of prayers. It sounded like the voice of God. Undated. Strange warriors pursued us through the caverns. We moved quickly, too quickly for an accurate description. Most of the soldiers fell in battle. They were valiant, but outmatched and outnumbered. Eventually, Lopez, I, and a single surviving soldier reached a magnificent temple. I cannot imagine how the people managed to build such a structure so deep underground. A massive door blocked our progress. Lopez, his voice frantic and breaking, ordered Perez, the last remaining conquistador, to stand guard while we worked on the mechanism. The door began to roll open. Our celebration of success was drastically cut short by the dying screams of Perez. The sound haunts me still. The door closed and a silence settled, so great and so vast I held my breath for fear of breaking it. Lopez turned to me, his eyes wild, a smile screwed across his face. He came toward me, arms outstretched, and for a moment fear flickered across my heart. But he pulled me close, his fingers digging into my shoulders. I found it, he whispered in my ear, and releasing me, he wandered through this room, walls of pure jade reaching up to the heavens, completely covered in intricate etched mosaics and carved figures. I followed at a distance as he approached an altar, and watched as he lifted a silver box from it. First of December, 1603. We've entered a cenote not far from the city and set up camp in a small alcove. Lopez has spent the evening staring into the flames, utterly ensorcelled, his dinner untouched. Twice I attempted a conversation, but his silence rebuffed me each time. He is utterly focused on this artifact. If I were a more superstitious man, I would wonder if the artifact is speaking to him directly. The soldiers keep to themselves as well. They seem anxious for battle. One of their dogs stared at me all evening, as though I were to be his next meal. "21st of December, 1603. Lopez had grown pensive since exiting the cenote. I led the way, and when I turned toward the city, at last he spoke, calling for us to stop. Then, after swearing me to silence, he shared with me a secret he had been carrying. That night, by the river, I met with the Emperor. I confessed to him who I was, who we are, and the true purpose of our visit. Trinity's fattened leaders, too busy with politics for even the morning's prayers, are not worthy of the box. The Emperor and I agreed that the only way to keep it safe from them was for me to claim it, take it far from here and hide it until one of the Paititi royal line, a chosen one, can follow his antecedents' clues and rediscover it. Having thus unburdened himself, Lopez turned on his heels and set a course deeper into the jungle. Brother de la Cruz appeared one day, emerging from the jungle, breathing new life into the mission. There were just the three of us when he arrived, and Sister Dorothea had been ill for many weeks. He and his associate began to work that first day. By the next week, de la Cruz had recruited a workforce of 36. They have prepared the bell tower and worked the fields, planting crops. Brother de la Cruz aims to make us self-sufficient. We'd spent so long alone out here, I'd worried we'd lose God's ear. Lo and behold, we not only had his ear, but he sent another to act as his hands as well. The others are worried that Brothers de la Cruz and Serrano will not return. I have so far maintained they will, that they always have. But in my heart I am beginning to believe we have seen the last of them, and that grief weighs heavily. We will continue their work. Either they will return to find we have not forgotten the teachings, or they will look down on us from above and bless our continued labors. "25th of December, 1603. It has been 4 days since we turned away from the city. We travelled in silence and in circles, guided by a confusion of grief, relief, and celebration. Lopez and I exited the jungle and landed in a clearing, under the gaze of several faces carved into the side of the mountain. Lopez had an episode, as he later called it. He threw himself in front of the faces and screamed for forgiveness. The heaviest sin on his heart was abandoning Perez to the strange warriors. They had grown close over the journey. Try as I might, I could not console him, so I built a fire and waited, as he decreed his actions and pleaded for forgiveness from the silent stone faces. "26th of December, 1603. Lopez woke me, having already prepared a Spartan breakfast. This is where we were meant to be, he said, a cold determination in his voice, so very different from how he acted just the day before. I finished my meal as he spoke of holy retribution, how he had acted in error, but now God had put his hands on his shoulders and shown him the path to walk. We will spread the true word of God from this small mission, he said, pointing to an adobe building just beyond the stone faces. We will prepare the path for the chosen one to follow, for only he who does will be worthy of this box. "30th of December, 1603. Lopez has just returned from a nearby village, and with him came a group he says will follow him and help us with construction. There was something strange about his behavior. I attributed it to the long journey through the jungle. That night, however, he admitted what had been bothering him. They followed me, he whispered. The others. He walked off. I spent that sleepless night worrying about his deviations toward madness. "18th of December, 1604. I've neglected this journal for far too long. We've worked hard to build the mission. Every day more people arrive. Native villagers seeking conversion, soldiers tired of war, others whose faith has been tested by the long, dangerous journey through the jungle, all lured by Lopez's gospel of purity through labor. We work from sunrise to sunset, and then Lopez, or Angel de la Cruz as he now calls himself, spends his evening preaching the mission's purpose, to test the chosen one. He's calmed considerably, and if he believes something pursues him still, he keeps it to himself. Tomorrow we begin to build the library, where the box will safely rest until it is ready to be found by the chosen one. A wheel-lock pistol, never mass-produced and banned in the Holy Roman Empire, ostentatiously decorated, a bit much for a missionary, but maybe a fitting weapon for an egoist such as Lopez.
This enigmatic illustration, recovered from a cursed and empty mausoleum, might be what our brave adventurer needs to finally find the lost treasure of the White Queen. She's managed to decipher the ancient text and has found a series of clues. A set of coordinates, a giant bat, and a series of game pieces in a line. The intrepid Lara will have to figure out what they all mean. I just wanted to thank you for your discretion, as well as the work you have done. The vault has been constructed exactly to my specifications. The final payment will be sent at the end of the week. The delay was due to an accounting error, which has now been rectified. Yours, Richard Croft. It has taken our hero years to piece this map together, spending nights in dusty libraries going through ancient tomes, exploring sunken ships, stripped of treasure, and chasing down any lead, no matter how faint it may be. If she can recover the treasure, our brave adventurer may prove herself worthy of becoming Lord Richard Croft's assistant. I have thought about it many times, and I'm still adamant that Lara be spared from this terrible grief, as you call it. Having her constantly thinking about her mother will only be more painful. It is better for her to be a child and not be burdened by such heavy thoughts. If you do not desist in this campaign of yours, I will not hesitate to terminate your employment at Croft Manor. I think this is from when we walked the El Memsha. I don't remember much, except for how spicy the bazaar smelled. Mum looks so happy. So does Dad. This looks like a figure from that game Mum and Dad used to play. But why is it out here, in the playground? Sir, I understand these last few years have been more than difficult for you. We all miss Amelia terribly. However, I worry Lara has begun to forget what little she knew about her mother. A terrible thing. I realise it is not my place to pry, but have you reconsidered talking to her about Amelia? My belief is that it would help you get over your tremendous grief, and bring you two closer.
Cinnabar was used in the ancient past for producing a bright orange pigmentation on ceramics, murals, tattoos, and in religious ceremonies. This is a traditional foot plough, still used in the Andes today, even outside Paititi. Sometimes the simple ways are still the best. The canopa serves as a receptacle for offerings of cocoa and animal tallow. The stuffed canopa is thrown into the farmer's field at the start of the harvest season as a gift for Pachamama, the mother god. It is said, if the present is accepted, the farmer will yield large crops in a successful breeding season. The Inca used a combination of freeze-drying and salt to preserve just about anything edible. Charqui and chunos are basically meat and potatoes. Delicious. These ceremonial ceramic jars are used to store corn beer or chicha. The bottom of these urpu are usually pointed, to aid when pouring into smaller serving containers. The people of the Andes have been perfecting the art of weaving for thousands of years. This chuspas is a wonderful example. Woven of llama or alpaca hair and traditionally used to carry cocoa leaves, it clearly highlights the weaver's skill. Beautiful. This is a little bit unusual. It shows herds of sheep, llamas, and goats. But one farmer wouldn't usually tend 3 distinct herds like this. That one llama, alone on the hill, that must be Urcachile, the Incan god who watches over animals. Urcachile was often depicted as a llama. This is a dedication from all the local herders to the one who protects their flocks, thanking Urcachile for the preservation of their livelihood. This is a dedication to Supe, god of death and ruler of Uku Pasha, the Incan underworld. It entreats him to come forth with his legions of demons and to converge on this site, where the local people will do him honor with written poems extolling his greatness or offerings of food and drink. By paying him the respect he deserves in this way, the local people pray he will only take those he must, and not harm any others of their community unnecessarily. A dragon, this must be depicting Pachamama, the Incan goddess of motherhood, earth, and time. She presided over fertility, the harvest, and planting. Her body was the mountains, and she was also the cause of earthquakes. People used to make miniature pieces of clothing with highly intricate designs solely for the purpose of burning them in dedication to her. That would account for the scorch marks on the floor, and those brown stains must be llama blood, another popular sacrifice. This must be Mama Zara. I always thought her forms of worship were a fun tradition. She was the Incan goddess of grain, and her name means maize mother. So if ever a farmer found a strange maize plant, they would dress it up like a doll in honor of her. She was also the goddess of willow trees, so sometimes the farming communities would hang one of their maize dolls from a willow tree and dance around it for her. There's no mistaking that bright golden disc. Inti, the most important god of the Inca. He was the god of the sun, protector of the people, and the provider of warmth and light. Some legends also credit him with teaching humans the ways of civilization, and the Incan emperors were either considered his lineal descendants or physical incarnations of Inti on Earth, depending on which emperor you asked. This depicts the story of Viracocha, the father of all creation. He formed the heavens, the earth, the sun and stars, the moon, time itself, and all living beings, including the other gods. At first, Viracocha was considered to be the supreme god of the Inca, but with time that honor passed to his son, Inti, the god of the sun. Still, Viracocha retained his link to the sea. His name literally means fat or foam of the sea. Konirea, the Incan god of the moon. He was relatively low in status, so he didn't have a mate. This tells the story of how he reshaped his sperm into the form of a fruit, which impregnated the goddess Kaviyaka when she ate it. His pregnancy came as quite a surprise since Kavika was a virgin. But when her son was born, the boy immediately solved the question of his paternity by crawling right towards Konireya. Kavika was so humiliated by Konireya's low standing that she fled with her son to Peru, where they turned into coastal rocks. This depicts the Incan god Kon. He was the son of Inti, the sun god, and Pachamama, the moon goddess. Kon was in charge of the wind and the rain, although in some legends he was only in charge of the weather that came from the south, while his brother Pachacamac was in charge of weather that came from the north.